For my project, I will be discussing California's declining insect biodiversity, as well as some solutions to this issue. For this project, I made a little website just outlining the issues and the solution that I came up with from my research. To start off, I'd like to talk about some of the numbers of insects that have been declining. First off, the crouch bumblebee population has declined 98% over the past decade. And similarly, other insects like the monarch butterfly have seen decreases of the same degree, as well as many other native insects to California. This decrease is mainly caused or influenced by climate change. But why is this even important? Why do we care about bugs? Bugs are gross and bugs are icky. Well, bugs are actually very, very important to our ecosystem. They play an essential role in pollination and decomposition. They are also a vital part of the food web that supports California's vast biomes and ecosystems that we love living here to experience and tourists come to witness. And we really don't want to lose that. As well, with the pollination, we rely on pollination just as much for our own plants in our front yard, as well as the plants in the agriculture. And talking about agriculture, one of the main causes for this massive decline is our big agriculture production sector that we have in California. In the middle of California, as almost everybody who lives here knows, if you drive into the Central Valley area, you will see flat land for miles. Seems like it'll never end, of just farmland. Over 40% of California's land is used by farmland, and the agriculture industry has many impacts to climate change, mainly habitat loss, increases in emissions, soil degradation, and water pollution. Water pollution is from fertilizers leaking into the water, and this habitat loss also has a horrible impact on our insect species as well, because they don't have a home anymore. So now that we see maybe a little bit of the problem, and it's kind of hard to talk about all of this in 5 minutes, but agriculture is very, very important to California economically and to the world. We supply food not only to our state, but to the US and also around the world because of our Mediterranean climate that is suitable for a lot of different kinds of farming. Now, when you think about a stereotypical futuristic sci-fi type movie, you think about these cities, these white cities with a bunch of plants on all these skyscrapers. It's very green. And this is not very far from the truth of what actually needs to happen. One of my inspirations for this solution that I researched isn't only these ideal societies that we see in movies all the time, but also a news article that I read about this it looked like a tank, a fish tank, and it was green and it had algae in it. And that goes into my main solution, algae, for decreasing the impacts of climate change. So algae is actually able to absorb more CO2 from the atmosphere than any land plant that we know. Algae, for my solution, algae will mainly be used in agricultural areas, but can also be used in urban spaces, in green roofs, and on green walls. But going back to agriculture, it will help reduce the negative impacts of climate change on not only the insect population, but just climate change and everything that catapults from it. This algae will not only absorb the large amount of carbon dioxide that I mentioned earlier, but also improve soil health, can act as a fertilizer. It'll filter out water and can filter out some fertilizers that we use that can be harmful later down the road to other animals. Some methods we can use is having algae ponds, especially near areas where there's livestock, to try to set a net zero for these emissions, but as well just laying them out across, having these algae ponds all over this land to just be absorbing passively the CO2. Another strategy is intercropping. Intercropping is when you put a plant, in this case algae, in between the rows of crop that we're planting. It will act as a natural herbicide to stop weeds from growing. It will house an area for insects to stop and lay down. It will help the soil health, retain water, put carbon back into the soil, and overall implementing strategies like intercropping, adding ponds, or even putting algae in some of the water canals are good and effective ways to reduce the impacts of climate change in these areas. So overall and in general, algae being implemented in California, specifically California's agriculture, but also California's cities, is a very effective way of reducing the impacts of climate change in California as well as the world, which will in fact also help support our diverse insect populations. Thank you.